Good Erev Shabbos, everybody, and good Yontif. First night of Sukkot. It's very exciting after a very difficult year. And now we started a new year, so hopefully it will be filled with a lot of brachot. As when the first brachot really starts with Sukkot. Ludwig Guttmann, a fascinating individual. He was a doctor in Germany, in Breslau. He was born in 1899 and he died in 1980. But he was a doctor in Breslau, and then he was the top neurosurgeon in all of Germany. And he was going to be the top guy, and he was going to be the top thing, but he was a Jew. And when the Nazis came to power, they pushed him aside, and so he was only able to work in a Jewish hospital. And he saved a lot of Jews. He saved about 60 Jews just by making up like different things for them, so why they couldn't go to the concentration camps. I think there was 64 of them and that came in, and he saved about 60 of them. And he ends up going to England, and he gets put in charge of all the people who came from the war. All the people who had disabilities, they lost limbs and so on from the war. And up until that time, the whole treatment protocol was to try to make them feel okay, so that they shouldn't be in pain, and so they give them a lot of morphine just to make them okay, and then they would end up dying in bed. And he was the one who he was insistent that they shouldn't do that. And he even stayed at the hospital moving them around, and people called him that he was cruel, that he was hurting these individuals, and so they really attacked him in his methods. But he pushed and pushed and pushed these people, and then he saw that sports really resonated with them, and he ends up getting like a game together between the doctors and all the people with different disabilities, and this turns into, and he goes national with the national, international, and he turns it into the paraplegic Olympic Games. There was a few great movies on it. I actually, the first movie that was made about 8 years ago, is called The Best of Men, because that's what he would call the people, the best of men. But then recently, Netflix just put out a film called Rising Phoenix, and it's about the whole games and his life. And I'll put out like a 2-minute video on his life at the end of this. A really fascinating thing. I was thinking about him because of something that we say throughout Sukkot that seems to not really make sense. We say in the Harachaman, right? We keep talking about Sukkah Hanofeles. What is the Sukkah Hanofeles? This is the fallen Sukkah of David, right? So what is this idea of this fallen Sukkah? The Maral has a beautiful parish on the fallen Sukkah. What he says is that when a house is built, so the house has a certain characteristic to it that only exists for this particular house. If something would come on and knock down that house, you could never ever build the house exactly the same. There was always stuff in the house that makes the house kind of unique. And then when it falls, you can never really rebuild it. It's very different than a sukkah. A sukkah, you could actually have a sukkah and then quickly blow it over, and then it comes right back again. And it comes back. And so you could keep making the sukkah, over and over, push it down and build it up once again. And it really resonated with me with this, the idea of having faith in ourselves, faith in people. That's what's amazing about individuals. And we see it for Klal Yisrael. That's what the Maral says for Klal Yisrael. That Klal Yisrael gets blown over, but then still comes back the same, and many times even stronger and better. And it's the same thing for individuals. We get hurt, we get injured, we get COVID, we get economy falling apart, we get all the different things, but then we're able to build ourselves up once again. And it's such a beautiful message for as we go into Sukkot, as we go into the last Shabbos before Simchas Torah. Now we have this idea, the idea of coming together building ourselves up for it. We have also the bracha we're going to be reading as well, the bracha, and then we start again. We start again with the same idea. We build up, we get knocked down, we have difficult years, but we're able to come up once again, put our pieces back together and rebuild ourselves. And we should continue to do that. We should do that throughout this year. We should rebuild ourselves and build ourselves stronger than we ever were. So I wish you a great Shabbos and a great Chag.
In 1944, a Jewish doctor who was a refugee from Nazi Germany started a new spinal injuries unit at Stoke Mandeville Hospital. At the time, patients were only expected to live for 2 years, so the idea was to make their remaining days as comfortable as possible. Ludwig Gutmann had other ideas about their life expectancy and insisted on managing treatment his way. His approach was controversial to many, but Gutmann single-handedly revolutionized the care of the paralyzed. He got patients off sedation and turned in bed every 2 hours to prevent infections. Next, he insisted they got up and moved around by taking part in craft and sporting activities. One of Gutmann's most inspired ideas was to get wheelchair patients playing competitive sport as a way of improving fitness, boosting self-esteem, and restoring personal dignity.
It changed my world out of all recognition because it gave me so much more confidence. I knew that I was equal to anybody. I don't know where I would have been without him.
On the same day as the opening of the 1948 London Olympic Games, Dr. Gutmann organised a team from the Star and Garter home to compete in an archery demonstration, and it had a lasting impact. The 14 men and 2 women who took part that day became the first Paralympians. Gutmann organised a similar event every year, and in each successive year, the Games got bigger and better. In 1952, the first international event was held when a small team from the Netherlands came to compete. From this date, Popper, as he was endearingly known, referred to the Games as the Olympics of the Disabled.
How important are games like these to paraplegics?
Very important. See, from both the physical and psychological point of view, but the most important is from the point of the social reintegration of the paralyzed into society.
The 1960 event is widely thought of as the first Paralympic Games, being held overseas for the first time, just after the Olympics in Rome.
400 paralyzed men and women took part, representing 24 countries.
From this point on, an annual event was held at Stoke Mandeville, and in each Olympic year, the Games moved, in the hope that they would be held in the Olympic city.
My first ever Paralympic Games was Tokyo, and I was lucky enough to come back with 2 gold medals, including the first ever track event.
The Paralympic movement continued to grow.
Papa Goodman would have loved to have been here now.
He had an extraordinary idea, and from that small acorn in Stoke Mandeville, we're now going to have 4,200 athletes from 165 nations competing in the London 2012 Paralympic Games. That's an awesome journey in just 64 years.